Now, as we draw towards the end of the year, Hollywood is counting its box office losses, I'm afraid, as the pandemic continues to prevent large sections of the audience getting back to the cinema. In the US, takings are set to reach $4.4 billion by the end of the year. Sounds like a lot, but it's 61% down on 2019. Of course, that was pre-COVID-19. Globally, box office receipts this year were around 20 billion. Again, a lot of money, but it's half of what the studios were making just 2 years ago. So far, only one film this year has grossed more than $1 billion across the world. That's Spider-Man: No Way Home. Compare that to 9 films in 2019. So, is it about fear of COVID stopping audiences setting out to the local multiplex? Or maybe the rise of streaming and on-demand changing the way that we consume movies, possibly forever? Well, Paul Durgarabedian is a senior media analyst at Comscore. I got his opinion.
It has been just an incredible year and a half, almost 2 years, really, for the movie industry and for movie theaters in particular, with movie theaters shutting down essentially on March 20 of 2020. And since then, it's been a real roller coaster ride at the box office. But like you said, the takings seem impressive at 20 billion globally expected, 4.4 billion in North America, which is around half. And so in the case of North America, less than half of what we earned in 2019, but it's double what we earned in 2020 right. on both counts. So it's kind of a good news, bad news scenario.
Yeah.
But considering where we were a year ago, we're in a pretty good spot right now, especially with Spider-Man doing $1 billion in business.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the success of streaming, which is partly a COVID success in an odd sort of way, that presumably brings in its own revenues, doesn't it, which perhaps don't count in the box office sense. But does it signal, do you think it signals a change forever? Or will we get back to those packed cinemas?
You know, I think we're going to get back to the packed cinemas. It's going to take a little longer than we expected. And considering the proliferation of streaming, how great all that content is and to have it at home, that's wonderful for people who want to just stay at home. They don't want to go out. But the fact that Spider-Man did as well as it did, Venom, some of the other big blockbusters like that, generally those films that have the youth appeal have done very well. And the films that opened in theaters first did better. I mean, they actually performed better in theaters because of the fact that that was the only place you could see them. And then when they hit the small screen, they actually are more coveted, more desired.
Right.
Films have a greater prestige when they go in the movie theater first. But definitely the industry is learning how all these new dynamics are coming to bear, what they're bringing to bear in terms of the box office and streaming.
You make an interesting point about the sort of youth element, if you like. I mean, they're happy to go to the movies and still take it on board, and perhaps different generations are that much more anxious, and that will be a hard nut to crack.
That will be. I mean, I think that's really the case here, that when you look at the films that have done well, the big franchise films, the superhero films, versus the more adult-oriented films that, like West Side Story, for example, which I think many had hoped would do much better because it's a great movie. But if the demographic is still reticent, the more mature demographic, to go out to the movie theater, that's going to be a problem. I don't think forever, but I think for right now, it's going to be the big blockbusters that are going to help the theaters weather the storm, get through this tough period, and get them on their feet for next year.